Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and today's episode is going to be another guest from the music industry. After the success of the Hell is for Heroes interview, and most recently the interview with Jamie Lemon, I thought it was great to add another one to the whole back cat of Mark and Me podcasts with the frontman from Refused, Dennis Lyxzén. Now if you know me or you know my music tastes, you will know how much Refused mean to me. Growing up, A Shape of Punk to Come was one of my favourite albums of all time, and it's an album that still now is on repeat weekly for me in my collection. It's one of those albums that as soon as I heard it, I just knew I was going to love this band and everything that they released. It was a game changer in the industry, and I believe that Refused are responsible for shaping many people's music tastes, and most of the bands I listen to now are in the same boat. They've come from Refused. They've listened, and that's inspired them to becoming a band, to become releasing albums, and I really do think they're one of the biggest game changers in the music industry and deserve all the respect that there is. And I'm absolutely thrilled that he's joining me for today's episode of Mark and Me. Before we get into that interview with Dennis, I just want to touch base on the last episode. So I was joined by the young actor Noah Jupe. Most people know him from the most recent horror, A Quiet Place, which is absolutely huge, and at this moment in time is still my film of the year. The feedback I got on Noah was phenomenal. A lot of people were enjoying just how mature he was for his age, that his vision was so clear of what he wanted, and the feedback I got on social media was incredible, and I did share all that with him, so thanks for taking the time to listen, and more importantly, thanks for taking the time to feedback on what you felt was good on that interview. And it really was greatly received. So back on to today's episode. As I said, I'm going to be joined by Dennis Lyxzén, the frontman from Refused, but not only that, the frontman from the band INVSN. Now if you haven't heard INVSN, it's his most recent project, and I urge you to stop this interview now, jump on Spotify or iTunes or whatever way you listen to your music and check out some of their tracks, because they're phenomenal. But after you've done that, come back, because I really want you to listen to this interview, and here it is, me and Dennis from Refused talking all things music. So Dennis, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. I want to take it right back to the start. At what age was it that you actually started wanting to be in a band? Was there a certain concert you went to or an album that you listened to that made you go, I want to fucking be in a band?
I don't think there was like a particular moment in time where I was like, I want to be. I mean, I remember from early on that I was into music, and I loved music, and then I just kind of figured that if you're into music, maybe you should play music, but it wasn't intentionally like, I want to become a musician, or, I want to become a rock star or something. It was more like I just wanted to play. So it's quite early. I was kind of into heavy metal and that kind of stuff, and that's when I decided, all right, let's start playing music, and I had a bunch of friends, and we started playing together, and we were truly horrible, I would say. But then that sort of morphed into my first punk band. And then I think that one of the things, you're a young kid and you want to play music, and a lot of metal music, there's such proficient players. And I was a young kid, I wasn't that talented. And then I discovered punk and hardcore, and it was like the same energy and the same sort of output. It was simplistic, and I figured like, maybe I can do this. So in 1987, I started my first punk band with a bunch of friends, and I basically forced them to become punks. I'm like, okay, we need to start a punk band.
So was it you wanting to be a frontman straight away, or did you want to be a guitarist or a drummer, or did you think, I want to hold the microphone, this is what I'm meant to do?
No, I was a bass player when we started playing, and in my first punk band I played bass, and then it was like, someone needs to sing, and I think I was the only one that had kind of the balls to do it, and I was like, I'll try to sing, and it was fine, I wasn't like the best singer, but I could sing okay, and then when my first band broke up and we started like my first proper hardcore band, then I was like, I'll just sing now, and then from there on I was like, now I'm the singer guy, I guess. So I always been. Since that day, pretty much every band I've been in, I've been like the frontman guy.
So was there anyone that you used to watch that you kind of idolized, or you kind of took kind of some stage presence from that you were growing up watching?
One of the things about like growing up where I still live is that it's pretty isolated. It's pretty far from anything. So I didn't get the chance to see a lot of bands when I grew up. It wasn't like bands would come to town all the time. But I remember when I got into punk and hardcore, one of the things you did was like you looked at the records and like, oh, they're jumping. All right, cool. That's a thing. Like you jump, I guess, and you could people kind of moshing around, and then you looked at their outfits and I'm like, oh, that's a cool pair of pants. Maybe I should wear a pair. So it was more like trying to guess what your stage presence would be like, and just sort of define it from photos more than anything. I mean, this is way before YouTube or anything, so you saw photos, and if you were lucky, you saw something maybe on MTV, and we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then also, I mean, I remember early on, 1990, me and a bunch of friends went down to Stockholm to see the Ramones and Iggy. You know, obviously, if you see me live, it's like that was a thing. That was a whole thing.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, like you said, being in Sweden, there's not going to be that many tours going on. You're kind of isolated. So what were you doing? Were you just like hunting out records, going to the store each week and investing all your kind of pocket money on new albums? Yeah,
and I think one of the other things that we did was that we practiced. Like there wasn't much to do, and where we live, it's like we have 6 months of winter, basically.
Yeah.
We have 6 months when it's dark and cold and pretty grim. So if you didn't play hockey, if you didn't really study, like you practiced. That's what we did. Like we spent every hour that we didn't have to work or anything, we spent it in our practice space. So we practiced a lot, and then you'd buy records, and you listen to music, and you talk about music, think about music, and then once you sort of realize that this is what you want to be involved in, then we started putting on shows ourselves, because as you said, there were very few bands coming up to where we live, so we started putting on shows ourselves. We started like booking shows, and encouraging our friends to start bands, and by the early 90s there's like a little bit of a scene going on here, and you had to create your own fun, you had to create your own sort of identity and your own ideas about what you wanted to accomplish, and it was very kind of a DIY thought, and that was a huge thing that you learn from, and that you sort of take for the rest of your life. That's something that's going to affect, I mean, it still affects me to this day in how I perceive the way we work with our bands now. So yeah.
So how much later was it down the road that you kind of made friends and kind of formed Refused?
So my first punk band was 87. I started my first real hardcore band 1989, we were called Step Forward, and late 1991 I think we started Refused. And one of the things with Refused is it started because I moved to Umeå, and I lived on the same yard as David, the drummer, and he actually went and saw Step Forward play live. He wasn't there to see Step Forward. He was there to see some other band, and we started playing, and David was blown away, and he's like, wow, this is what I want to do. And then he befriended me, and then Step Forward broke up. So late 1991, we started Refused. Yeah.
Did you ever expect that it would blow up as big as it did? Because you were the Shape of Punk to Come is one of the biggest hardcore albums ever.
No, it wasn't. There was no ambition like that. I mean, especially not for me. I think that David early on knew that he could become a musician, and for me, Refused was just something that I wanted to do. It wasn't a career choice. It wasn't a path that I was supposed to. I mean, it was just something that I wanted to do. I figured, like, I'll do Refused for a couple of years, and then I have to get a fucking dead-end job and, kind of live my life as I was supposed to. And I mean, in the 90s, with Refused, I mean, we toured a lot. We didn't make any money. I mean, I was hustling. I was like scamming, like, unemployment benefit. Basically, like, pretending I was like looking for a job, but then when I went on tour for a month, and so we didn't make any money. It wasn't like a career choice. It was just something that we did. It was who we were for a period of time. And then when Refused broke up, I was like, well, I guess I'm done with that. Like Refused broke up. We put out Shape of Punk to Come, and no one cared. It was weird. Like, we put it out and we started touring, and all the hardcore kids were like, "Oh, you're a bunch of pretentious fucks. We don't we don't like you anymore," and we broke up. And I was like, maybe I'll just go back to school. I'll become a teacher or something, and then that'll be my, And then I started Noise Conspiracy, and then one day I woke up and I was like, wait, when did I become a musician? That was not a part of the plan, So it's like it's circumstances, It was never an ambition to become like a full-on musician.
It must have been pretty bliss then to look back and know you didn't have to do the shitty dead-end job, 9 to 5, fucking corporate companies, and be able to do your music for a living, because that is the ultimate dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's like there are things about like living the way I live my life that's very liberating. There's a huge sense of freedom in what I do. I never had money, which is a bit weird, but you get used to that, and you get used to living on the margins, and you have years when it's like 2012 was great, I had tons of money, and then you have the other years where I was dead broke. Like when Noise Conspiracy stopped touring, and there was like 2 years when I was like so broke. But then, there's another sense of freedom, and there's also a sense that money isn't everything. Money shouldn't dictate what you want to do with your life and how you want to live your life. So I've been blessed. I've been lucky that I've been able to do this for now 20 plus years. I've just been playing music basically, and I've been very lucky. Also, I worked really hard,
Yeah.
I put a lot of hours into it, and I put out a lot of records, and I toured a lot. So it's like it's hard work, but I also been, I've been lucky to be able to do this for a long time.
So in 2012, when you reformed, you didn't actually have any intentions at that point to release any new music, did you? It was just to do some shows, is that right?
Yeah, I think the first ambition when we got the offer, the Coachella offer, was like, let's do 8, maybe 10 shows. Like,
yeah.
Really kind of, be exclusive about it. And then we ended up doing 82 shows that year.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. Like, it just kind of snowballed because we started practicing, and we're like, let's do 8 to 10 festivals. That was it, basically. And then we started practicing, and we're like, wait, this is a lot of fun. So we just kept going. And we did a bunch of shows, and then somewhere along the way, I mean, in my mind, I thought there was going to be 2012 is going to be the Refused year, and then that's going to be it. But then at the end of the year, like I remember, like we're playing Fuji Rock in Japan, and we got an offer to go to like South America, and we said we couldn't really do it because we played too many shows already. And then Chris said to me, he's like, well, there'll be more chances. And I'm like, what? He was like, well, we'll keep this going. I'm like, oh, really? You think? And he's like, yeah. And then we had a band meeting, and the other guys just asked me flat out. They're like, do you want to do another Refused record? And I was totally not prepared. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? They're like, no, we have riffs. And then they played me some riffs, and I'm like, I guess we're doing a new record. So yeah, no, when we started practicing, it was just like, let's do a couple of shows. That was it. But then it turned into a whole thing,
So were you fucked off when people were saying it was a cash grab? Was it nice then to do an album and say, fuck you, it wasn't. It's a whole thing. It's a bigger picture than what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it could have easily been a cash grab. And I think it's like, if we would have gone out and just kind of half-ass our way through Coachella and be like, yeah, let's see the money. But one of the things that people have to understand, like one of the reasons that when we came back in 2012 we were really good, because Coachella paid us enough money so that we can take time off. I mean, everybody else had like jobs. They could take time off from their jobs. We could take time off from our families and be like, let's just focus on Refused for a full year. So the Coachella money gave us the opportunity to, for 2 months, just practice from 9 to 5 every day for 2 months. So when we came to Coachella, it wasn't a cash grab. It was like, this is what we are. This is what we need to be. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I mean, it was great to, for once in my life, not worry about money for a while.
Yeah.
But money never dictated anything that we ever did. Like, it was more like, can we do this? Like, it's like the more existential issues about, like, what are we now, like in 2012 as opposed to like 1998, or what kind of people are we? How can we perform these songs in a way that will do them justice? So it's never been about money. But yeah, when you're 40 plus years old and a lot of people in the band, they have kids and families and stuff like that, of course we have to think about money, but we can never motivate our creativity or our political ideas because of money. That'd be a cash grab, but we've never been that type of band.
When I read in, I think it was Rolling Stone, that you're going to release a new album after 17 years, obviously you kind of, as a listener, you worry, you think, God, are they still going to have that edge? Are they going to still want it? Is it going to be raw? Is it going to be too overproduced? And then you went and did a big public announcement that Shellback was producing it, who's known for very famous pop albums. So I was thinking, these guys are going to go and work with the guy that did Taylor Swift's album. It's been 17 years. And then you came to the UK. So you came to the UK to play some shows. And I was like, fuck, I didn't think I'd ever get this chance to go and see one of my favourite bands again, you know. When I saw you in Birmingham, it was like you were all 20 years old again, and it was your debut album. You went on stage and absolutely went for it more than probably back in the day. It was unbelievable.
Thank you.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What was it like trying to write again and work with another producer after 17 years? Because it's not a couple of years break that most bands take. That's long enough to have a child and raise another family. It's a long time.
That's a lifetime of a break. It was weird. It was like definitely like a pretty steep learning curve, because it was, as you said, in 17 years, like, how do you write music together again? And it took us a while. It took us a while to get kind of footing on where the direction should be, but we also worked really hard. It took us like in the writing process of that album was that we worked really hard for almost a year, like super hard, and we practiced too much, I have to say. We practiced all the time, and it was like a kind of a strenuous process. And then I have to say, one of the funny things is that the record's produced by a guy called Nick Launay. That he's done Nick Cave. He's done like the last 9 Nick Cave records, and he's like a solid like rock producer. He's done some really cool stuff. But the thing with Shellback is that he's a friend of ours, and he's like an old Refused fan. His favorite bands are like Breach and Refused. He's like an old hardcore kid, and he heard some demos, and what he did was like he heard a demo. Electra is one of the songs that Shellback produced on the record, and he heard our version, and the Refused early version was 7 minutes long and really slow and kind of sludgy.
Yeah. And
he heard that song, and he turned it into the song that it is today. Like, basically, like, we went to America to record our 7-minute version, and he just sent us a demo and said, I fiddled around a little bit with Electra, and we're like, oh, this is so much better than what we got. So when we were done in LA, we actually went home to Sweden, and we did 2 songs with Shellback. And I think the funny thing is that if you would put on the Freedom record and take a guess at what 2 songs did Shellback do, the 2 songs that he did are the 2 songs that sound most like old school Refused.
Yeah, it's true.
Because he wanted to be true to, songs to fan the flames of discontent and Shape of Punk to Come. And there's definitely a bunch of songs on that record that people could be like, oh, that sounds like Shellback, but it's not. That's just us. So it's quite interesting, and I think we as the punks and provocateurs that we can be, we made a point in the press release that we wanted Shellback and Taylor Swift and Pink in the press release to piss people off.
Amazing.
It was such an intentional move. We were like, because I remember I saw the first press release, and then David emailed. He's like, no, it has to say Taylor Swift. It has to say Shellback. To make a point out of it, to be like, you don't know what, when Refused comes to town, you don't know what you're going to get. I think that was the whole intention of it. And then, once we got out and started playing the songs, it felt great. And because we're the type of people that, like, in honesty, I think that we could have come back after 2012, like maybe in 2015, and kind of just do the Shape of Punk to Come songs one more round, and people would be kind of happy. But that would have been a cash grab. And we said, if we ever going to tour again, we need new music. We need to be relevant to ourselves. Like, we need to be relevant in who we are. So there is no other way than if we're going to, as long as we're going to keep going, we're going to keep making new music.
One of my favourite documentaries is one of your own, so Refuse the Fucking Dead, one of my most played DVDs, and it's so, you've let your guard down, you're really letting everyone see what it's like to be in the band, etc. And it's so honest that at points it's saying that the environment wasn't friendly back then. 2006 Refused wasn't this happy, really nice touring band. It was quite a bad atmosphere and not friendly. Does it change now that you're all a lot older and you've kind of got families and you've grown apart but then grown back together? Is it a much more healthy environment when you've been on the road?
Yeah. It is. Back in the late 90s when we did Shape of Punk to Come, and one of the things that we toured way too much, and we killed ourselves touring. And when you're in a van and you're like, all of our minds were going in different directions, and then try to keep the band together, and so much of the band was ingrained in our identity of who we were as people, and we're like, you become the band in a sense, and we all wanted different things, and we didn't know how to communicate that. So it was horrible. I would say the last 8 months of Refused in 1998 it was horrible, and we broke up. And I mean, we didn't talk. Me and David started the band, and we were like best of friends. We didn't talk for like 2 years after we broke up. We couldn't hang out. It was like really awkward and tense. And then one day we hung out, and we met in Stockholm for some reason, and we hung out and the entire day, and we're like, oh wait, we are actually really good friends. So when we got together in 2012, me and David, we had a hardcore band called AC4 for a while together, and David was working on music with Chris and Magnus, and Dave was working on things with John. So we're all like kind of like hanging out. And one of the first things we did when we got back together was like, let's talk. Let's talk about how does this feel, and we talk a lot, and we try to be really transparent with each other and really open, and we don't have the same prestige in and ego as we used to have. So it's a pretty nice environment when we're touring, because we really want to make it special, and we want to make it count, and we want to make it like this is a thing that we really want to do. And I have a lot of friends that play in bands, and it's like it's a job. It's like, they don't like their bandmates, maybe don't even like their music that much, but it's their job. And I don't want my creative element and creative process to be like that. We had enough of that in the 90s. So now it's like, we're surprisingly well adjusted.
It sounds like an absolute roller coaster of emotions the last sort of 20 years.
Yeah, it has been.
I'm still one of these guys that likes to read lyrics, so when I get an album, they're not always in the bloody CD booklet anymore, but I still buy CDs, and I'm old school, and I like to read the lyrics. And one of my favourite tracks by you is Dawkins Christ.
Yeah.
Those lyrics, when I read them back as a listener and a fan, is that they're all about living in a frightening world, and this is only a couple of years ago. How is it now for you? Because let's be honest, we're in a worse world in the last 2 years than when you wrote those lyrics. It must be terrifying for you. It must be just, I don't know where to even start, but it's not a good time, is it?
No, it's a pretty bleak time as far as what we're doing in the world and as far as humanity goes. And it's a bit of a bummer when you're, not even with lyrics like that, but just in general when you've been singing about political issues for the past like 20 plus years, and you're like, it's not getting any better. I'm doing something wrong, I think. So it's been. If you look at the sort of the culture that we live in today, it's pretty bleak, and it's pretty harsh, and people are not very friendly towards each other, and the West world still likes to meddle in conflicts that are none of our business, and then when that turns into disaster, we don't want to take responsibility for that type of disaster. So it's been pretty bad, and I mean, especially with, well, like, you got the Brexit, and you got the Donald Trumps, and you got the, everything that goes on. The one thing is that it does keep you on your toes as a musician, as an artist. Like, it does keep you, like, inspired to write, which is kind of sad. I wish it'd be better if I had nothing to write about than too much to write about, I think.
So your most recent project, Invasion, this is very different to Refused. If any Refused fans come along and think, oh wow, it's going to be like Refused, I think it's very different. It's got kind of a new wave, it's got more industrial sound, it's still got that, the punk elements, but the biggest eye-opener for me is that there's no guitars on this album and this EP. It's crazy. I thought you'd be the band that write with a guitar again. I don't know how you've adjusted. I'm being honest.
It's pretty interesting how that happened, because when we started Invasion a bunch of years back, it was like a very guitar-driven sort of new wave-ish punk band.
Yeah.
And actually, the last Invasion record we did before The Beautiful Stories, we were 3 guitar players in the band.
Yeah.
And we were touring with 2 guitar players, and then what happened was that one of the guitar players quit, and I saw a friend of ours play live, and he had 3 guitars, and I was like, dude, it's too many guitars. And then we did the Refused record, which is so much about guitars. I mean, Refused is all like about the riffs, it's about the riffs, and I'm in a backstage room where classic rock reigns supreme. It's just like riff rock all the time. So in my mind, I was starting to gear towards, like, I want to listen to music that's non-linear. I want to listen to music that's not guitar-based. So that when we started doing the Beautiful Stories, we said, okay, let's try to write songs that are not based on guitars, but based on drums and bass and, like, percussion and rhythm and melodies. So with the Beautiful Stories, we did that, and with this new EP, like, especially the 2 first songs on this new EP, there are hardly any guitars. I mean, there's a little bit of guitar in there, but it's like, we wanted to work with different elements of music, and it still sounds pretty it's pretty punky and has a lot of, like, energy that kind of, like, it's a very there's a lot of propulsion to it. So we wanted to do that, but without just being a guitar band. And it's been a challenge, but it's also been quite interesting to see, like, how can we create this really visceral, sort of aggressive, moody music without, like, just playing guitars. And I think the new EP, I think it's fantastic.
So what's the contrast like for you? Because let's be honest, when you're in Refused, you can walk on stage, you could just put your arm in the air and the crowd are in your hand. They're literally there, they're putty, and you just need to just be yourself. When you're now trying to tour in a lower established band, it must be a challenge, because what you're trying to do is convert those people that are probably there for the headline act, for example. So you're going on stage trying to win them over. Like, it's a battle from the moment you walk on. That must be so different to what you're used to.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit, I mean, the contrast between Refused and Invasion is pretty big. Like,
yeah.
The way we tour and the way the venues that we perform at, or just, like Invasion, that's just us. That's basically the band. We have a friend, Robin, that sometimes follows as a tour manager and drives us around and does merch, and then we have my brother that does sound, but that's it. And Refused, it's like a whole thing. It's like an operation, tons of people, and it's like a production. So the contrasts are pretty big. I do have to say that just from being in international noise conspiracy for a long time, and just always being in bands that always had sort of an underdog slant to them, I like the idea of winning people over. I like the idea of, like, you go on stage and people look at you and they're like, yeah, I'm a bit skeptical about this bullshit. And then after like 5 or 6 songs, you start to reel them in. At the end of the set, you got them, and they'll go buy a record, or they'll come up and talk to you. I love that aspect of playing in a band. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's frustrating to go out and play with Invasion, like 20 people show up and you're like, yeah, really, only 20 people. But the 20 people that are in the room, they deserve to get what, the 2,000 people that come to the Refused show get. So I like that struggle. I like that aspect of like working really hard to prove that you belong on stage. I think a lot of people, they sort of get used to one of the two things. Like either you're like a really DIY kind of band and you tour like once a year, you do a tour and it's like squats and really small time. You play bars and pubs, or then you became that band that travels in the bus with the crew and you play big venues. And I like to move in between these worlds, and some days you're playing in front of 20 people and some days you're playing in front of like 20,000 people, and I don't really, in my output, there's hardly a difference in the way I do it.
Do you kind of take a competitive look at it when you're supporting a bigger band? Do you think, I want to fucking make those fans walk away tonight wanting to buy our record and not yours?
Yeah. That's like
at least you're honest.
That's how I mean, that's what you're there to do, you know. Like, you're there to win people over. You're there to go on stage and say, all right, you don't know who we are. At the end of the night, you will remember me. I mean, some nights no one cares. Like, some nights it's like they're there to see the main band and they don't really give a fuck about you. And some nights it's really like you could feel that you're winning people over. You can feel that they're like, you'll be the band that they're going to remember. But it's a struggle, and it also depends on what kind of band you're playing with. Sometimes you play with bands that the crowd is so defined, it doesn't matter what. It could be the second coming of Christ, and they will still be like, no, I'll wait for the main, I'll wait for the main act, just how it is some nights.
How's the future looking then? Are you trying to bring Invasion over to Europe and the UK and stuff, or is it too low key at the moment? Or,
I mean, we're releasing this EP, and hopefully that will generate some interest, spark some interest with people. I mean, we've been to the UK a little bit with Invasion, but it's hard. Like, we are that band that plays in that pub, and that no one really knows it's happening. We were lucky enough a couple of years ago. We did a short support run to Echo and the Bunnymen, which was really cool. But at the moment, it's like I would love to come to the UK and play, but someone needs to know that we exist.
Yeah.
If not, it doesn't make sense. It's a work in progress. It's like one of those things where we like you just work, and you try to make it happen. There's a new EP coming out. We're playing shows. We're going to play shows this weekend, and we're just like trying to slowly but surely work our way up to a level where people actually know who we are. So that's just our future. That's our aim.
And I believe you're looking at hopefully doing some more material with Refused again. We're not waiting another 17 years.
No, yeah, we're recording a new record as we speak. So I'm going down to Stockholm. We're playing a show in Stockholm on Saturday with Invasion, and then I'm gonna meet up with David and Chris for a couple of days and write, and then so it's definitely there's a record in the works. I think we have 11 songs recorded already, and we need to record a couple more songs, and all the lyrics are not done yet, but it's definitely happening. It's definitely in the process.
And moving forward, you seem like a guy that would never go back to a normal job. You are in the music industry, you're creative, you're passionate, you don't want to be fucking a robot in an office, you know what I mean? It's not you.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something that you've not done that's still on that list? Because you've gone and formed one of the biggest bands around, you've now got this grassroots band that you're building and slowly getting into the mainstream again. Is there something that you feel that would you like to do a solo record, just you on your own? Or
no, never been interested in solo work. I've always been a little bit too much of a socialist to adhere to like the I'm the star. Like I think that my strengths are usually to have people around me that complement what I do in a good way, and I think the Invasion and Refused are golden examples of just friends playing music together. But I mean, in my head and in my mind, there's still tons of music to be done. There's still another couple of 100 songs that I need to write. So I'm not really worried about like drying up or not being motivated to write. I mean, I could see Refuse going on for another 10 years at least, and Invasion for maybe another 15, 20 years. So I'm not really worried about that. I do want to do more projects, just different things. I want to do more freeform noise projects. I want to do more just guest vocals on bands and stuff like that. So I just want to keep working, basically, become a better singer, better songwriter, better lyricist. So it's interesting because I've been playing music for 30 years now, and every day I feel like I'm learning something. Every day I feel like I'm becoming a better musician, better performer. So it's like, I'm far from done.
That's refreshing, because there's a lot of bands out there that probably get to a stage where they can just half-arse a gig. They can turn up and just play the songs, and you can even see it on their face. They've been going for years and they just don't really give a shit. They just plow through the set, and they say hello at the start, and that's it. And you pay $40 or 50 quid or something. It's like, I don't know, you always feel a bit shortchanged. Yeah,
I think that, as I said before, I think that for me, music and getting the chance to perform, getting the chance to actually express yourself in the way that I do, it's a privilege, and I don't take that lightly. I think that every night you have to prove yourself that you're worthy to be on that stage. And yeah, I see bands that kind of dial it in. It's like, another day, another dollar, it doesn't matter. And, there's not enough people here tonight. Then I can't think like that. I think like, I need to deserve this. I need to be worthy of this spot that someone's given to me. And I mean, people come out to see you play. It's fantastic. Even if it's 5 people, like those 5 people actually paid money to see you perform music. It's a beautiful thing. And I mean, there are very few things in life that make me feel as myself. Like music is one of those things where when I'm in the music, that's the most comfortable I am as a human being. So I just need it. It's not like I don't do. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said, what if we were making money off this? And I was like, I would still do this. It doesn't matter. Like, Invasion never made money. Like, we toured for a couple of years now. We never make money, but I love to do this, and I love to play, and I love to perform, and I'm hoping that I'll have a heart attack on stage. That's it.
That's the way to go. That's the best way to go. If you weren't doing music, what do you think you'd have done? You seem like a creative guy. Do you think you'd have wrote books or made a film or be a producer or a director, or what do you think you'd have done?
I would probably books are probably the closest, because I really like words and I really like reading. And I was like, when I grew up, I was like one of those nerdy kids that hung out at the library at all times and just read books. And I still love books, and I still love that idea. So I think that would have been my best bet. Like, probably go in that direction and become an author of some kind. If I wouldn't have been a musician, so maybe an author or something like that. Yeah.
My final question for you is: there's a lot of people that listen to these podcasts that are quite young and creative, and they're in bands, or they're wanting to make their first record or become a singer or a guitarist. What advice do you give? Because you have been at both ends. You've had the most success, but you've also been in the fucking gutter and the lowest point. How do you keep going?
I mean, I think one of the things that you have to ask yourself is the big existential question: why am I doing this? And I think anyone that starts a brand new band, or that they want to become a musician, then ask yourself, why do you want to become a musician? And if you love music, and if you love to create, and if you have like this beast that lives inside you that says we need to do this, then do it and work hard. Because I think that's also like, sometimes young people, they come up and they're like, how do I get paid? How do I get signed? And I'm like, just work. I think that's the most important aspect of it. Like, I come from a DIY sort of background, and we didn't wait around for anyone to come and book our shows. We booked them ourselves. We didn't wait around for anyone to come and release our records. We started our own record label. We didn't wait around for anyone to form a band for us. We formed our own bands, and I think that's an important thing. And just like, work hard and ask yourself why you want to do this. And if it's for the money, if it's for the fame, if it's then you should not do music. Then you should just do something else, become like an app designer or work at Google or some shit like that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. It's true though, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not... I have so many talented friends. I mean, even like in Invasion, like Sarah that I've been playing with, I mean, she played in hardcore bands in the 90s. She did her first US tour in 1995. She has a job. She has to take time off from her job tomorrow because we're going to go play a show. And she's released like 15 records maybe. She's done like thousands of shows across the world. She has to have a job. I mean, that's kind of the bleak reality of what it is to be a musician. I mean, yeah, there are the 1%ers that just kind of make it, but those are far and few in between. And then you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if it's because you love music, then go for it. Just go for it and try to create your own identity and try to create your own thing with it. Yeah.
That's a perfect place to end, I think. I think it gives a good message to people for the right reasons, so I think that's perfect.
Cool.
So there's my interview with me and Dennis Lyxzén, one of the best guests I've had so far. An absolute pleasure to sit down and talk to, and just so inspiring. I love how passionate he is, that he's been doing this for 20, 25 years now, and he's still loving it and going out on stage every night and giving the performance of a lifetime that he can. He puts all his energy into his music, he never stops, he plays in front of rooms of 10 people and then 10,000, but still puts on the best show he can. And the respect that I give this guy from listening to him talk is just doubled since the last time I listened to Refused. It's just incredible. And, you know, someone that passionate and that kind of driven, it's got to rub off on you. You've got to listen to that and be inspired to go and either start a band or just do something creative. I want to thank Dennis for joining me on today's episode. It was a pleasure to have you on. Something that I've been working on for about 6 months now, so I'm glad it's happened. And I'm really looking forward to the brand new Refused album, which they're recording as we speak. On the next episode, it's only going to be a couple of weeks away, and these kind of fortnights absolutely fly by. The Skip to the End podcast was only out last week, and I'm trying to release Mark and Me in between them, and it's just full on at the moment, but I'm not stopping, and you'll be getting a brand new episode in 2 weeks' time. You know me by now, I'm not going to ruin and tell you who the guest is, but what I will say, it's someone within movie and TV. But hey, you're not going to guess from that, and if you do, well, fair play, you can win a prize. But it's someone back within that kind of section of pop culture, and I'll look forward to posting some pictures and teasing you all with that in the very near future. In the meantime, you can check out more on Mark and Me on the website, which is markandme.com. All my old episodes are on there. There's now 39 different episodes you can go back to, and they're all free. They're all on Spotify, they're all on Podomatic, they're on Stitcher, they're on iTunes, or just go on markandme.com and there's a link there to listen to it live. Whatever you want to do in the best way you listen, it's all greatly appreciated. If you do love this podcast and you want to give a little back, I do have a Patreon page and it's greatly, greatly received. If you do enjoy this podcast and you want to give a little back, you can sign up to my Patreon, which is on the website. You can subscribe as something as like 70p a month, and that all helps me get to go out and do more interviews, invest in more gear, and make this podcast the best that I can. I've doubled my amount of patrons in the last 2 months, so a big thank you to everyone that's jumped on board. I have offered some really good prizes, so we've got some Funkos, we've got some t-shirts from Last Exit to Nowhere, also Headshot, and there's random prizes that I'm surprising people with, and it's great to see how much you all appreciate them. As I said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time, and until then, stay safe, and I'll speak to you all then. And thank you for listening. Bring up 3 things that are like so important to the whole world. I don't have to find much importance in. because of these things, whether they're fucking or whether they're playing golf, because of that, I feel. I gave up! I gave up! I gave up!